So welcome everyone today. Thanks for joining us on SharePoint 2010's Web Partner Webcast presentation, The Roslyn Experience and Refacing Your SharePoint Site. My name is Mark Dunkel. I am the SharePoint Technology Specialist for U.S. Education. I'm joined today by B2B Technologies' David Norris, as well as Roslyn Public Schools. And thank you for joining us on this great Tuesday afternoon. First of all, we always like to thank our customer for participating in this webcast, Roslyn Public Schools. Thank you very much. These webcasts that we publish these to YouTube as well as our Microsoft.com education site under educationwebcast.com. And so this goes a long way in helping other customers see the potential of the SharePoint platform. This session, again, will be recorded. It's going to be up on YouTube at the channel SharePoint@edu. And during this presentation, we will see both demos and slides of the solution there at Roslyn. And at the end of this time, we'll open this up to Q&A. As far as my contact information, if you have any questions about this webcast or any other webcast, or about SharePoint in general, my name again is Mark Dunkel, and this is my email address, and feel free to send me some emails if you have any questions. Some resources that I have for you are www.educationwebcast.com. This is where Microsoft puts a lot of our education webcasts across a variety of our product stack that you can go ahead and consume at your leisure. I also have a YouTube channel at SharePoint@edu where we post this webcast and similar webcasts to this, as well as you can go to the Microsoft Public Sector Demos site to drive some of our SharePoint education webcasts as well. So with the house cleaning taken care of, I would like to introduce David Norris at B2B Technologies. David, you have the floor.
Great, thank you, Mark, and just want to extend my thanks to Mark and Microsoft for putting these webcasts together. We're certainly happy to participate, and I also want to extend my thanks to Roslyn. And speaking of Roslyn Public Schools, I have a few people with me here today, so we're going to more or less do this interview style. I really want to give some of the folks here at Roslyn a chance to tell us about their experience using SharePoint for both their external facing website as well as a platform for their portal for teachers, parents, and students. I'm with B2B Technologies. Again, my name is David Norris. I'm the Education Engagement Manager. You'll see my email a few times here in the slides, and you can certainly feel free to reach out to Mark or email me directly. I'm happy to talk with anybody and answer any questions after this. I do want to just say right up front, though, that B2B was one of a few partners that supported Roslyn Schools with this initiative for the website. We actually worked with Core BTS, which is another SharePoint developer who did some of the work earlier on, and they also worked with AIS, Accelerated Information Systems, and we'll talk about the various roles that each group has. But for now, what I'd like to do is I'd just like to give everybody an opportunity to introduce themselves. So, Dr. Brenner, starting with you.
My name is Dan Brenner, Superintendent of Schools in Roslyn. I have been with the school district for 7 years.
Great, thanks. And we'll jump over to Jason.
I'm Jason Lopez, and I'm the Technology Director or CTO.
Great. And Barry?
I'm Barry Edelson. I'm Director of Community Relations for the Roslyn Schools. I'm also the Webmaster.
So what we have here, we have the core group here that really worked on this, and one of the really nice things I'll say up front about working with Roslyn is having access to the CTO and the superintendent and people on the other side at the director level. Throughout the project, it's a great way to work. We have key stakeholders as part of this project the whole time, which is fantastic, and we're certainly lucky to have them here. So what I'd like to do, just to kick things off.
Yes, I apologize for interrupting, but we would be remiss if we didn't also make mention of Dr. Ed Salina, who was the Assistant Superintendent for Administration in Roslyn when we dreamt this. Jason Lopez has capably taken over for Ed, who is now Superintendent in Plain Edge, and couldn't come and join us today. But much of what you'll see today was as much Ed's vision as it was any of the three of ours.
Absolutely, and we were fortunate to have to spend some time working with Ed as well during the beginning portion of the project. But that's one of the interesting things is there was sort of a change of hands, but the vision was good, and things kept going. And I don't think much time was missed there as Ed moved on to bigger and better things. So I appreciate that. Thanks. So I just want to start off just a little bit about the district. We are sitting here at one of the school's campuses here on Long Island, and one of the things that I noticed about Roslyn and heard about Roslyn is just that you have quite a history and quite a tradition of working with this community. You're one of the first accredited and unified school districts here in the New York City area, and so I do know that you have quite a history. You're relatively small as far as districts go, but this is kind of typical for New York. I think I don't think people really necessarily realize this, but New York has a lot of these smaller districts. You have 5 schools, and what are those schools? You have,
we have a high school, a middle school, 3 elementary schools. We are one of 56 school districts in Nassau County.
Okay, yeah, and you're also pretty impressive in terms of the results and the achievement there. I know that you have a stat here that 90% of your students go on to 4-year colleges, but I was asking you earlier about the graduation rate, and everybody's looking around. What is it?
Almost 100%.
Almost 100% here. So definitely very, very impressive. So a couple of other things. I'll just let you share some things that I'd like to point out that sort of played a role in this project. You have a very strong focus on technology here, and I know you've been doing a few programs around that. And one of them I know that played a role that had some influence on this project was the iPad initiative. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we about 2 years ago we had decided that we wanted to move towards a one-to-one solution, and when the iPad was first marketed, we saw some of the great possibilities that it could bring to the school district. So at this point, and in fact, we're very proud of the fact that we are among the first schools in the country that pushed this iPad initiative through. And through funding of our own, that is internal to our budget, we have been able to set a course where our entire 1,100-person high school will be essentially paperless our hope is by the end of 2 years. Right now, our entire 9th grade is paperless, as well as an additional approximately 150 students. So by the end of next year, 9 through 11 will be paperless, and we're doing some very, I think, innovative things as it applies to classroom work and with the iPad.
Great. And, like I said, I think that certainly had some influence on this project, since we're talking about using SharePoint as your portal, and you've got your students and faculty using iPads as a main device. That cross-platform support was really important. I know it's something that we focused on in the design as well. So you also think this literacy program going on with Columbia University, so I know that there's a lot of outreach in that sense, and strong community outreach here with the community that you serve. And Barry, you were mentioning earlier just how how one of the challenges or opportunities here is just how technically savvy everybody is in this neighborhood. So
yeah, we do have a community, a parent community that's very technologically sophisticated. They have a certain level of expectation of how we communicate with them and what we can provide to them. And so developing this website was part of a long-term vision of how we can better deliver information and documentation to our parent community, which is accustomed to that in their personal lives and their professional lives. And we want to make sure that the school district was on the same level of delivery of services and information.
So that's so with that, with those expectations in mind, I know that when you set out some of the initial goals for this website and and for your portal was to really focus on that, communicating with the the various stakeholders, and in particular the parents. So early on, some of the things that you wanted to do were the paperless stuff. Jason?
Yes, we wanted to improve communication, be able to have a parent portal where parents can get information immediately as soon as we post it, and have it the documents in a retention system like Laserfiche.
Great. And we already mentioned the paperless. We'll certainly spend some more time talking about that as well. So this is where I really want to start. I know that this was a fairly long initiative for you. You've been working on this project for a long time, and I know that a lot of that was planning and design. I really liked one of the things that you shared with me, which is that if you see on the slide right now, you'll see a picture. Those are actual Visio diagrams of the taxonomy of the site that they were using, and handwritten, and were gathered around a conference table. And Barry and Jason were telling me that the goal was that anywhere a user needed to go, they needed to get there within 2 clicks, right? And so
so we'd go back and forth with the documents and these Visio drawings and trying to find out where to place things that would be appropriate throughout the entire site.
Yeah.
Our old website had a tremendous amount of content on it. But one of the things we had lost over the years in using the website for more than a decade was a sense of the architecture of the site and the usability of the site for the end user. So while we had a lot of information there, we had not planned for the long term how we were going to manage all that data and how to make it accessible. So this gave us a really good opportunity to start from square one and to build a site from the beginning, which is an unusual opportunity. So that we could completely rethink the way parents and other members of the community go into the site and find information quickly and easily and get to where they want to go without always having to figure out how to navigate through. We try to make it as simple and as logical as possible.
So, because we were talking before about the different landing places, you would think that most people would start at the home page, but when you talk about school district, there are various home pages, high school to middle school. So once you're there, how do you go about getting that 2-click philosophy that we were trying to work with? So we were trying to plan that into this, that when you were there, you could still back out and go into a department, and you would try to be only 2 clicks away, 3 at the most, but the plan was 2.
Right.
So David, this is Mark. I know a lot of our customers when they think about taxonomy, they're thinking about the site structure, and then they eventually get into the content and how to organize that content. And of course, there's so much content throughout a district. And a lot of that content is kind of unknown by the IT departments. What process did you guys go through from a governance standpoint to kind of identify what content would be there? Did you include some of the other functional groups that would be using the site to kind of discover what content that would be there? Or can you explain to me what that governance process looked like?
Yeah, the governance process was in this particular case, it was less is more. And that is, we didn't involve a huge group of folks. We made some administrative decisions. I think what you heard was Barry tell you that we had so much material on the old site that really what we did is we spent some significant amount of hours, Barry at least initially, and then running it through this kind of small team about what we could throw out. Because much of what we had was dated, and so it was we had a very clear vision in our mind, and that was we were looking to make a website user-friendly with information that could be reachable, and we kept our vision on us as the consumer as opposed to as us as the builder. And I think as a result, we ended up with the product that we've got, because we never lost sight that this was really about the people on the other side. Interestingly, though, we didn't spend a lot of time involving them in the decisions. We fell back on being users ourselves and really using that as the model.
Yeah, we'll take on different personas too. I know, like you were talking about use cases and sort of the different roles. And if I'm in the high school, I have a different experience.
And we also spent an enormous amount of time looking at other sites and seeing what other sites had done and culling away what we saw that was really solid from other sites. So we learned from other people's work and kind of put that into ours and helped us kind of build the structure around that.
Yeah. I think Ed found, Dr. Selena found a nice site that B2B did, Gaston in Florida, and that really gave us some good models to go by, and so we pieced it together. But one of the biggest things we did, I think the three of us sat together, is we printed up the website, something about just having pen and paper at times, and laid it all out, and we crossed out what things should go, where should things maybe be, and then we would kind of put this in this Visio document to kind of give us this layout, and, does this work? And we'd always just move it around, and we played with it, but we seem to have spent more time in the planning phase before we actually got to the design phase, and I think it was really working that out, not rushing the jumping into the code part of it.
There was great irony in needing paper to go paperless.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking, did you blow all the paper budget planning this and this other?
Right.
And I think that's really good advice, because when you think about all the breadth of what SharePoint as a platform can do and the types of things that it can do, when you put yourself inside of that constituent's shoes, whether that's a parent or a student or a faculty member or staff member, and think about how they would use this and how that platform would provide value, I think that's extremely good advice for the folks that are listening throughout in the audience. Thanks for sharing that.
The other part is that we recognize that we're still not at a finished product. So the moment we lit the site up, we got immediate feedback from the users, and we made adjustments based on that. But that's very different than building it with their input, which I think would have overwhelmed us. What we did is we put out a product, very much like when you come to a table and you want to write a paper as a group. It always goes better if someone writes it first and people edit that, as opposed to trying to write it with all those minds in the same room. So that's the way we approach it. So we've made some minor but significant changes along the way since this site's been put up.
And that what became one of the downsides of the old site was that over the years people say, oh, why don't we put this on the site, why don't we put that on the site? And there are often good suggestions from staff members or from members of the community, but over time you multiply that hundreds, even literally thousands of times, you end up with a site that's totally unwieldy. And so that is the product of sort of everyone writing it bit by bit over years. This was a different kind of process to try to whittle it down to something that was really lean and functional and flexible, so that we can build it out again to include the things that people really need.
Well, one of the things I liked about SharePoint is it had this library that we were able to have documents that expire. And I really like that, so that you could put up a document and you say, it's going to be done by this time, and then it automatically comes off. So we don't have to worry about going back inside there, taking it down, fixing the link. That's kind of nice. That's the benefit of SharePoint.
Right, so rather than having a lot of hands at it with different responsibility, you can really pre-plan some stuff and roll it out. And that sort of leads into the next piece here that I want to talk about just briefly. So you obviously selected SharePoint as the platform, and we'll talk about some of the challenges there too. But there's a lot of benefits that you've seen from that platform. I was wondering if you could just sort of address those, and maybe we can talk a little bit about some of the upfront struggle, because I do know that you had to figure out, I guess, how to work with it a little bit. So what are some of the things that you just with your experience that you've really found that work for you?
SharePoint by itself is a very abstract environment, so it could be anything in a sense. So it's really hard to know exactly a structure or where to begin. So having our design was really great. And going to B2B was actually really helpful for us, because we knew what our vision was, what we wanted, and then when the design came, it built some kind of structure in this abstract, design. And from that point, we were able to really move forward. We learn some of the benefits later, like security, which has good sides and its bad sides, because when it's in a distracted environment, it can be anything. So when we found that we could assign things with the design that we built and how we wanted it, we really found the benefit there.
Yeah. I think that's something that was very evident working with Roslyn, is the fact that it was all sort of taken from that end user perspective, right? And I was on some of the calls when we provided some of the first wireframes for what the site was going to look like, and you could see it kind of click there, and we started to understand better what you were trying to do, and so it was interesting to get that feedback from the designs really what drove it.
And one of the really important things we wanted was a totally integrated system, so that the public website, as we call it, and the parent portal would be fully integrated, so that we could have built out a parent portal from our student data management system, but it would have been a separate system. It wouldn't have been as internally logical. It would have been as visually appealing and as user-friendly as what we ended up with. So there was a tremendous amount of learning on our part, plus design, plus coding on our developer's part as well as Jason's part. But in the end, we ended up with something that is uniform, is simple to understand and simple to use.
Right, but in the background, especially with Laserfiche, how it takes the documents, and we have this. The website really shows the display of a lot of the documents we have in the parent portal, which I think we'll go into later. But on the back end part, the Laserfiche allows us to index this, gets us to query, and it really completes the entire process. And so they've been a very valuable part in this.
Yeah, and I just flipped back to the slide to point out that's accelerated information systems, the Laserfiche, and when we go through, you can talk about how some of the parsing that's going on and other things are pretty interesting there. With that, I know just one other thing that I want to point out here. We'll talk about the iPads and stuff here in a moment, but you had mentioned earlier, Barry, about the publishing capabilities and the workflows and how that sort of changed the way that you work and publish things.
Yes, one of the things SharePoint does enable you to do, which a standard website design would not enable you to do, would be, for instance, to create documents, or create pages, I should say, and create permissions for those pages so that we can view them internally and work with them internally before they go out on the public website. We always had the capacity, of course, to create pages in our old HTML-based website that before we published them, but we couldn't share them easily. It was very difficult for me to, say, host something for something that was coming up that I wanted one of the assistant superintendents to see. It was very difficult to do that without just taking a snapshot of the page. Now I can send them an actual working copy. They can look at the copy. They can work on it. They can edit it. And we have that kind of workflow capacity with SharePoint, which is a unique capacity of the system.
I think also when we demoed the site, you could show them what we did, where there's a view for the outsiders, but there's also a view for the insiders.
Right. And with that, I think we've talked a lot here, so I'm going to ask Barry if you can drive. I'm going to switch us over into. We're going to go out to the actual live website, right? Yes, and do things that way. So I'm just going to switch over to sharing Internet Explorer here, and I'm going to let you drive. But the first thing, just as we start here, the very first thing that I'd like to point out is the fact that we are looking at SharePoint. Yeah, so I think that surprises some folks here.
And this is our live website, and one of the first things you'll notice is that it's a very photographic centered site, which is something that we wanted from the very beginning in our design plan. We wanted to make it very focused on images because the website is, of course, a visual medium. And as Jason was saying before, once we had the design and the template that B2B produced for us, we were able to visualize very easily what we want to do. And we're using photographs as well as graphics as an entry point for a lot of important stories, the most important stories that we have on the website at any given time.
And design, go ahead.
also what Dr. Brenner was saying was, after the fact, we got feedback from people. The slideshow on the top, we added this feature to advance the slides to move the stories or go back to a story. And although it's a small thing, it was important to be able to go there instead of waiting around for this, We
got feedback from parents who said this is great, but why do we have to wait 5 seconds to get to the next story if my son is in that picture that you see right now? We really aren't interested in the cafeteria while we're there. So we went and spoke about it, and lo and behold, we put up these little arrows that allow us to click through quickly. And it's little things like that that makes this site just that much more user-friendly, which is really our goal.
And I know I've harped on it a few times here, but I do, while we're here, want to point out one of the things you discovered about the iPads. And
right.
So if you show the slider piece, I think.
So if you roll over, the pop-up happens.
Any one of these sections is a separate table of contents for content within each of these sections.
Right, but on an iPad, there's no such thing as a rolling over. So we coded something new that when you touch it once, then it pops up, but it behaves differently depending on the device.
And it's the kind of thing we wouldn't have anticipated, but we were able to find a solution for it. And you'll see where we have these 8 sections. We basically divided the architecture of the site into 8 sections. These 4 here: students, parents, staff, community, news, Board of Education, district offices, and schools. And within each one is content. So this was part of that goal to make it possible to click through easily from the home page to almost any other place on the site. And there was some redundancy built in as well, which we'll show you as well. So for instance, if I'm looking at a story here on the home page that's with a picture, I can show you a picture, say a news story like this. If I click on this story, on the picture right here, it's going to take me to a page that has a news article about the story, which is a simple way of getting into that story. But if I want to go back out to the site, there's another way to get in there. I could go to news. I go here, there's a story about the cafeteria right here. There's another way of getting in there. And if I also click on the news page, this has got a gateway page into that section, and you'll see there are a lot of those stories that are in the pop-up slider on the home page are also repeated here. And this is one of the nice things about SharePoint, is that we use web parts to create these pages. This is called the table of contents web part, which automatically puts the title of the page right here. So
you add a new news article, you don't have to go and write the navigation.
I don't have to put it here. It'll actually show up here, and even if I go across news over here on this navigation, and of course there are ways of altering these settings. You can hide items, you can add additional items, but you don't have to do anything additionally. It's not additional work to create that redundancy. So it gives us a lot of different pathways to get to the same place without a lot of additional work to get there.
And automatically SharePoint takes care of the XML and the RSS feeds. So Barry put a link over there.
I want to take a look. We can take a
if you
look.
click on that, the browser will interpret the XML, and you can look at it that way.
And
there you have the RSS reader.
There you'll see the summary of the various news stories that we saw on the homepage.
And so this goes back to that cross-platform support, working with, if you have a technically sophisticated community you're working with, people are using different devices to use this stuff, and it's going to look differently on a mobile screen here with the RSS reader. So
one of the really important things we look for in developing the site, I'm going to go out to the homepage again, is an integration of the appearance of the site as well. So if we go to any one of these sections, we're going to find the general appearance, the color scheme, and so on is going to be the same all the way through, so it's fully integrated. And yeah, let's take a look at one of the school pages. They're all very similar in appearance, but they all have different kinds of information. So the basic setup of the pages you'll see is similar to the home page. There's a photo slideshow at the very top, which will rotate by itself, but you could also click through to some of the other pictures that are here.
So let me ask you a quick question about this, too, because I think this is an important piece here. So you wanted to have that consistent, I guess I'll call it branding, right? You wanted to make sure it was consistent from a usability perspective, and also just how the district is presented there. Now, but the individual schools do have some control over content. Is that Correct.
Well, schools, in fact, we want the schools to have control over content.
Right.
And our expectation is at some level that they'll be refreshing it, and that Barry would be managing the overall site and all of the district news and events. But that this site works best if each of the schools have their autonomy.
Mm-hmm. And we actually set these up, each of the 5 schools, as its own sub-site within the site, so that it's discrete and easy to manage that way. And see, each of the schools has the section, the quick links, but they're a little bit different on each. They're customized for each school because each school has different needs. And the high school has more than the others, just because of the nature of the high school. There's just more engagement by students directly, so there's a lot of information that students access directly through here. A lot of information about programs and things coming up. We have, our AP exam schedule coming up, and Regents Review, and our final exam schedules and things like that. So there's a lot of information. But again, if you think back, we were on the home page. We clicked to the high school page is one click, and then all this other information here is still just one more click away. And so our goal is not to try to do page within page within page in the old folder format, but try to keep it integrated this way. So
cascading menus and all those things that you run into.
To try to avoid that as much as possible. And I think we've been up for since the beginning of this calendar year, and I think we're at the point now where I think we kind of a pretty good sense of the scope of where it's going to go, and we don't feel it's going to blow up out of control. And we kind of have a really good handle on how much it is. I mean, obviously with the photos, we can go to some of the other schools, the elementary schools. There are a couple of dozen pictures up there at any one time. Just different schools, the nature of what's going on. These things will change and be different from each school, but we have the flexibility to make each section of the site its own without losing that sense of the integration of the whole.
All right, you will over departments.
Sure.
Basically,
You can go to the department page.
Yeah, kind of see the different departments.
These are some are different departments. Now these are pages that were originally created in another platform, and we've kind of it has a little bit of the look of our old site, but it's embedded within SharePoint. And from the end user, you probably would be hard pressed to really realize that you were no longer in SharePoint. We're actually using a kind of a page, also a web part. A page viewer web part, so that we don't have to recreate all the look. Now, eventually, our plan is to bring everything within SharePoint, but some things were just not practical in the time that we have in terms of those.
And this way, you can prioritize things, and you're not, retiring everything all at once.
Right, and we're not losing content that people find valuable, just for the sake of not being able to do exactly what we want with it right now. So there are a lot of those web parts in SharePoint that enable us to bring in other kinds of content.
This functions more or less like an iframe.
Yes, very much, yes. And one of the other things I wanted to point out was that just another thing that SharePoint enables us to do. If you look at our district offices section here, you'll see there are several of our departments. There's a message from the superintendent, athletics. I was going to show you human resources, just because it's something interesting that we can do with that. Here's our human resources page, and just information. It's just not showing any listing this time, but this is where we list new employment openings in the school district. But one of the things we were able to do here is to create a web part and create permissions for the web part so that only staff could see it. So if you're a member of the public and you come to this page, this is what you're going to see.
So we're on the public site right now.
We're on the public site right now. But if we instead go to log into this page, there's a little instruction for staff here.
Huh, that's interesting, and it's embedded.
It's embedded in there. I can log myself in. Oops. Excuse me.
Domain to it.
We'll see. Do I need to do that?
We'll see what happens.
See what happens. Oops. Looking for Rosnat. Sorry. Let's start over. Oops.
And this is
And this is Mark. As you're logging in, before the way you used to do all your different school sites, was that done by different technologies? Did it have different look and feel? How did you update and keep all these sites updated? Was it different schools kind of had their own different technologies, or did end users update this, or was it the IT staff?
In the previous system, we were using Adobe Contribute, and each department, and I think the schools themselves would basically open up, contribute, grab the site, update the content, then hit publish, and they were kind of done. But they had limited control. There was really no other parts they could do or add lists, and everything was very manual at that point.
But
it wasn't very WYSIWYG. It was as much as contribute offers, which is a lot, but it's not as much as SharePoint.
So by just using the content editing web part, though, you were able to put a wrap around it so this navigation is consistent and feel and not have to rewrite all the things.
What's also nice about web parts is that you can use it in multiple places and use those lists in multiple pages, which I like a lot too.
Well, it looks like Barry got in here.
Yeah, this is how we design this. So here's a web part on the right, which has permissions set so that only members of the staff can see this. So these are just items that are useful to staff members from our Human Resources Department. And we will build out the site to include pages like this in our curriculum and instruction area, in our business area, where there's always information that goes out to the staff. So instead of just, say, sending an email with a form attached, and then 6 months later someone needs that form, where's the email on the form, we can create these web parts and put them here and give them permission so that the general public is not going to be able to see them. But it creates one place for members of the staff to find the information that they need. And we can also do the same thing, for example, with students. We were talking to the head of our secondary research program with a very sophisticated and award-winning student research program here. We're talking about building a site that would be proprietary just for students and members of the faculty who work in that program, and we're going to build that as well, also using web parts and permissions. And SharePoint gives you the ability to create permissions on many different levels, on the page level, on the web part level, on the document level. We could create a document here where only some people could see certain documents.
I wanted to say, too, just because this is a really interesting point, I think this is a really good example of using the permissions in SharePoint in sort of the right way. I mean, you see so often with SharePoint that you have the sign-in thing up there, right, up in the corner, but I like the fact that it's embedded in the content. So I'm reading the content as a specific user with a specific goal, and sort of within that context is when I log in. And not only that it's just the web part, rather than going to a whole separate page or saying, this section of our portal is for these people and this section over here. It's you're really looking at it in a granular way. What does this particular role, what extra piece of information should they have or do they need?
I just want to also end that we're paperless at that point. So instead of them coming here and grabbing the W-4 form, they can go online, grab the form and have it. They can fill it out with Adobe and at that point save it and then email it if they want, or any of these other forms that Barry put up. It really solves that problem. They might print it out, but maybe they'll print it out at home and not waste our paper.
And Barry, did you want to take us towards, since we're talking about the different roles and what people can do?
Yeah. You want to talk about the portal and
sure. So now
I'm going to sign out because I want you to see what the public users of the site will say. If we go back, let's go back out to the home page just so you see where we were. We go into our parent site, and this is the entry to the parent portal.
You can wait for a minute,
Yeah.
just on this.
Yeah.
This is really the reason why we did this. It's this link right here this is why we went to SharePoint. This was the purpose for building the site, and everything else is kind of like the cherry on top of the ice cream sundae. This piece right here, which allows us to increase our communication effectively with the home, is what really we believe makes the difference. It's great to have a nice looking site, and we're really proud of what we've got, but the ability to be able to communicate in a way that gives parents, community members, information that is essentially live about their kids and current is really the strength. And the reason why we went to SharePoint is the functionality around being able to integrate our currently running systems and into one spot that allowed all of this to happen. And so what Barry's about to show you is in essence what we were looking for when we started. That's really the essence of why we ended up where we did.
So we'll go back to the PowerPoint, right?
So, yeah, just a quick explanation here. This is they are live here, and we don't have demo accounts set up, so we can't go and show actual student information without protecting it some. So we're going to do this a bit click-through style here, but give me just a second to move back over to our PowerPoint. So, sorry, give me just 1 second here, and we'll be back up and running. So, again, we want to continue through this, as if we're continuing our demo here. And, this is an example of what...
Yeah, if a parent had logged in with their username and password, they would come to a page, something like this.
Right. So the parent has the ability to put in multiple children, and it doesn't, they don't have to be in a relationship. It can be, for any parent that's assigned these student keys, and the application allows you to enter this string of keys in, which we only need to know once, and it will retain that information when they log in again. And if you can see inside of this, and it's a bit small, but right there we have 6 reports. I can barely even see them, but we have the student profile on the top right, and that really allows the parent to know about the emergency contact information, where they live, so they can double check that the school has the correct information. And if we don't have it, we'll update it in our student management system, and the reports on the back end, which is a SQL report, will update it at nighttime and then redump it back into SharePoint, that document library. We also have, did you want me to go through this?
Well, so we have the scheduled one here. I just happen to have some of it in here, so. So we have, this is the student schedule, which is one.
Right, so this, let me see this one. Yep, this will tell them what classes they have, what time those classes will be, and it has our district seal on it. And if they want, they can print it out or they can keep it digitally on them. It's accessed right now only for the parent, but the parent can share this information with the student if they want. And if the kids have the iPads, they can pull it up inside of their, whatever viewer they like for PDF.
So I actually want to get to the next one here. This is another one that's linked from right here. This is one of the report cards.
Report cards was one of the most difficult reports. We worked very close to a core. There was a bunch of guys on that end, which were really tremendous. There was excuse me if I could forget them all, but there's Christopher Deutsch, Sean, Tom Jurgens, and this group of guys over there, along with Matt Kumar, really gave me a great team to work with. And we would work together as, seeing what the existing report card looked like. I'd get the guidance counselors in, I'd get assistant principals in, and we'd sit down and we'd go back and forth until we got it right. And eventually learning that we should put a refresh tag on there so the parent knows when was the last time this information was pulled, because if they were arguing about a grade or certain information wasn't there, they'll know that tomorrow, they come back in here, they'll have that timestamp.
You were talking offline, we were talking a little bit earlier, Jason, about sort of the how simple this looks for the parent, right? The parent comes in, the parent sees the report card, they click on it, they can see when when it was last refreshed, and it's this very clean, simple interface giving the parent the information that they need in a more timely way than you could. Can you, do we want to know what's under the covers? Can you give us a little bit on the back end? Because I think that's SharePoint, one of the beautiful things here is how so much of the complexity is masked.
Well, quickly, I'll try to explain it, but our student information server, it's PowerSchool, and the backbone of that is Oracle. And what we did is we made a connector with SQL into Oracle, and based on that, the guys created a SQL report, and that report would pull out those certain fields that they created from a query based on a particular time range or quarter, and that information would be able to produce a PDF. It also allowed us to create from SQL TIFF, and that TIFF is something that I give to Laser, and from a workflow that Zaire created, take that and put it into our repository, which would be indexed. So there's multiple areas. So later on, instead of Laserfiche, I can search for a child, but not only find a report card, I can find any information that that child's or student ID number refers to. Later on, there's another report, but that's the basic principle of it. It's databases talking to databases, and from a job report and dumping it into SharePoint document library. The web part is actually one person at a time. If you look at that picture behind there, if you break that up into thirds, each of those is one web part. And based on the information that's inside of the document library and the GUID that's assigned to that person, it's getting way too technical.
Oh, no,
but it will pull up those reports based on the click.
It's the same code behind the scenes if I have one child or 5 children, and it goes in based on the queries that you have and display all those, and each is a separate web part, each individual. I can certainly see some flexibility there too.
Yes, but what's nice about it is that it's more of a snapshot of the night, of what happened at night. So even though they're pulling up the information, they're not actually putting any strain on our student information system or SQL, any of that stuff at the time they click on it. It's only at night when the report's run.
And one of the things that I think that makes this unique, because it's not completely unique to have this data on school websites.
Sure.
What makes this really unique is that it's current and being constantly refreshed. And so if a student comes in on September 7th and decides to change a class, the next day, mom or dad goes on, that class is reflected in a change schedule online. And no one did anything except update it in PowerSchool, our student management system, and it automatically will pull in the update. That's what makes this so powerful. So the information that's in there is current and it's accessible.
And secure.
And big time secure.
And I also don't want to lose the opportunity to say that we have mailed report cards to middle school and high school students for the last time. This last quarter, we made them all available digitally, and from the third quarter onwards, going into the future, our middle school and high school students are going to get their report cards digitally.
So let's move on and we'll get into the results.
So that is absolutely, the fact that you're done mailing out the report cards is actually extremely impressive. One of the questions that I just want to ask, because this comes up a lot when we're thinking about these types of solutions, is what was your process for making sure that the parent is actually associated with these students, and what's your process for going about that?
About the assigning the hash marks.
Yeah, well, we were working on different ideas for that, and eventually the guys at Core, when we were banging our heads together, came up with a hash, and this hash was going to be used on the final letter that we were going to mail home that Barry and Dr. Brenner worked on. We were together on that multiple times in revisions until we didn't want to print so much, but we needed our way of explaining it and a secure way to give this hash to the parent that they would put into the system so they would see their child. So eventually we came up with a system, and to save money, we actually got a window to envelopes that when this thing was folded, it would have the address in it, so we'd have to print labels, and it had to be particular to that student. So it wasn't like a letter that we would print 1,000 times and labels. They had to be for that particular person that we envelope for.
Right, so the very first time we did it, we sent the letter out with detailed instructions of how to go onto the website, how to create an account in the portal, and each parent had each of their children's unique hash or code that they would enter that one time, the very first time, and once they set up their user account, from then on they would have access to that. And that hash code is associated with the student permanently, so that any new information that comes into the system that is updated to the system is associated with that particular student.
Then we found out something very interesting, and that was how many people threw out our mail without opening it. Because what ended up happening is everybody calling up and saying, we never got it. As soon as they realized they could access their report card for online the moment it went up, as opposed to, because what we wrote in the letter was that they would get the report cards for the last time, but they could get it immediately, or we would get it to them in the next 10 days. in our community, that report card is gold, and as a result, people want it right away. So everybody was scrambling, and when they couldn't find their hash, no one admitted that they lost it or threw it out. They only said,
So it appears that we lost our presenter for a moment. I'll try to get him back. So until we get David back on the presentation, since we lost him. As far as, using, SharePoint, I've seen these particular examples right here where we make a parent association to a student done in a variety of ways. And this is a new way that I've seen it done, is via the hash and sending out that hash and then associating that hash with a parent account after they log in and they create an association with that hash and that student, which is an interesting way. I've also seen some school districts where they make the parent come in and sign some information to make that association, and then they added it, and then school districts will add that association into whatever systems that they have. But this is an interesting way, because they've actually created a mailer automated secure way to go about this. So there is a variety of ways that this can be done. And so just behind the scenes here, I'm just trying to get David on. And hopefully these guys can come back. And I should be able to get them back in 1 second here. Sorry for the in the interim, does anyone have any questions about how this solution was designed or developed? How many resources? Does anyone have any questions? And if you have any questions, please just go ahead and enter them into the link client over here on the left-hand side, and I'll see if I can't answer those questions. I'll make sure that proper follow-up is done. So I see that 2 people are currently typing. So beyond the mobile aspects of the iPad, any other mobile devices used in this mix? As far as the documentation that I've read, and until David gets on and the customer gets on to kind of confirm this, I know that they are using iPads, of course, for the customers that are out there who may be using Office web apps, for instance. You can certainly use the iPad with the SharePoint inside on the SharePoint platform. One of the new announcements that just happened is in the iPad version 5.0.1. I believe iPad's currently on 5.1. If you're a customer using Office web apps, if you're updated to the latest and greatest iOS browser, you can edit inside of the Office web apps. And of course, the Office web apps are the browser-based versions of Office documents. And so that has been a significant kind of enhancement to the latest version of iOS working with SharePoint and the Office browser-based web apps. And of course, those Office-based web apps work with Word, PowerPoint, OneNote, and Excel. So unfortunately, I don't know what happened to the customer connection. They're out there on Long Island, and I don't know what happened to their particular connection, and I haven't seen David get back to me. If there's any other questions, I'd be happy to try to answer that. What is the projected ROI, return on investment for this? This is, Vince, this is something I'd be happy to go ahead and ask the team and get back with you. On that, I believe I do have your email address if you've registered, so this is something that I could certainly ask the customer their feedback on that and get back with you on that. What about the calendar injection? Any ideas or use of provisioning calendars for parents or students with the content as it is PDF only? Greg, this is a question that I will certainly be happy to ask the partner and the customer that are currently working on that and see if they have any plans for that in the future. So if the customer does not, if the customer cannot come on within the next couple of minutes here, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. If you have any questions, I'm going to put in my email address right here, and I'll make sure that they're answered for you. My email address is mdunkel@microsoft.com, and I'm going to go ahead and put that into the pane here. And so if you do have any questions, please feel free to send me an email. I'll be prompt and get back with you and work with the customer. I apologize for the technical issues here. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send me that. I will post what we have on SharePoint on our SharePoint SharePoint in Education channel on YouTube, and get back with you with that as well. So sorry for the glitch here at the end. I know they had some additional things that they wanted to show you. I apologize. We may reschedule this as well. But if you have any questions, please let me know. And thank you for your time, and go ahead and send me that email. So with that said, thank you everyone for joining today, and I will talk to you next month with another great partner webcast. Thank you very much. Goodbye.